Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. And try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to another episode of The Crazy Life. I'm Brian, and joining me as usual is Henno.
Howdy.
And we assume Jen's taking a nap.
Having a nice little snoozle.
We haven't heard from her a little bit today, so I'm not sure. We apologize for the show being late, but me and Henno were taken down by headaches earlier in the week, and then today, was our plan to record, and I got up today, and I was sleeping, and all of a sudden I hear the fan in my room go off, and I'm like, uh-oh, so I sat up and I looked, and I'm like, the little, standby light for my cable TV box was completely gone, and the little thing that has my different HDMI, it's a HDMI hub that I have for, video game systems, there's no light on that, and I'm like, power's out. So, I get up, and I was going to go check our breaker to make sure, it wasn't something like that. And, my mom was like, no, it's out. She's like, I heard a loud, like, boom kind of sound. And so,
Ooh.
Yeah, apparently it happens a lot up here, like way more than it has in anywhere else I've lived. Is, a car hits a pole and takes out the, power for 300 people. And, that was around 1-ish, 1:30. So, and they, a little while after that, they update the thing on their website, and, we should have it on by 9:15 tonight. And they're pretty good. Like, they're usually within about an hour of, their actual time. So I was like, man. So, but on the upside, it wasn't like blistering hot here today. It was about 80. And I think, I think our humidity made it feel like 85 basically, but there was an okay breeze blowing occasionally. So it wasn't horrible. We just got as many windows open as we could and, took advantage of the breeze. But, so thank goodness. Cause I think in the next couple days, I think it's supposed to get like back up over 90 or near 90 again. So at least it wasn't on those days. It was today where it was at least tolerable, and with COVID, you can't go just like lounge somewhere really, you can't just go kill time, like, oh, let's just go hit the stores and whatever. You don't really want, like, I don't want to be in the stores longer than I need to be in the stores,
Yeah.
I don't want to go to a restaurant because otherwise that would be a good way to kill a few hours, or, a couple hours, go
Cool
talk
off
a
a
little. Yeah, talk a little bit, have lunch or dinner or whatever. But we're like, So, it was, it is funny though, because, when, like, me is on any day where it's remotely warm, I just sweat because that's how I am. It doesn't matter, like, what weight I'm carrying. Like, yeah, I just sweat. Unfortunately, it's, in my genetics. So, I'm miserable laying in bed, just awful. And I'm like, well, I'm not sleeping because it's, too dang, I'm too dang hot. So I was like, well, I might as well get up. And it was just funny because, I had one of the first thoughts that I had was, I'm talking with people on Twitter and, I messaged you guys about the show and stuff just so you had a heads up on it. And the first thing that pops into my head, though, was the, first world problems thing, because it's like, oh, boo-hoo, you can't have air conditioning, And again, it wasn't like it was blistering hot, or I wasn't out in like, Arizona or down south like Texas or something, So, like I said, it was actually a really, pretty nice day outside. It was a little warm if you were just standing in the sun, but other than that, it was a pretty nice day. So, like I said, could have been way worse. And thank goodness it wasn't. So, yeah.
My Wednesday headache was brought on by pretty much first world problems too.
Mine was a straight up migraine. Like I've been getting them again. They've been just coming out of nowhere, and I mean just dropping me basically. So I don't know if there's some trigger or what. The weird part is, since our weather cooled down, that seems to be when I've gotten them in very intense ones. And I think maybe it's because like we've had it's been hot for most of the summer here, hot and humid. And finally it wasn't. We were down back into like the mid 70s and it was no humidity. I mean, it was gorgeous days. And I'm just like laying in bed, like, so the change I'm sure makes a difference, but it's just so odd that those days don't normally trigger migraines. They trigger sinus headaches maybe, but I mean, these were bad. I had to take, some of my medicine and just the one night, I mean, I had the sheet over my head because just any light coming in was too much. So, yeah.
That is so gnarly. Like when I finally experienced that for the first time, I was like, oh, and I didn't even experience it rough. It was light, just mild.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it. I have an incredible different viewpoint now on people with migraines.
Yeah. It's nuts. I definitely don't wish them on anybody, But yeah, I was feeling fine Wednesday, and then, after you mentioned that you were out as far as recording, and then me and Jen were talking a little bit, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I just kind of had this like kind of nagging pain, like I've talked before, like right in between the inner part of my eye and my nose, like right in there, like someone just jabs an ice pick in there. And it was kind of nagging. It wasn't terrible at first. It was just kind of there. And then all of a sudden, man, it just got horrible. And I was like, whoa, I'm done for tonight. And I mean, seriously, I texted, you guys and was like, hey, I'm out too. And I literally, right after that, went in and right into bed. There was almost like no other activity. Well, I took a pill for my headache and then was like, whoop, time to crash. So, yeah, it sucked, but whatever. It's funny. I had, this week, I follow this account that posts like clearance items and, good deals and stuff like that on Instagram. And the other day she posted that there were some Walmarts that had, was it not the newest generation iPads, but I believe it was like the ones before that. And they were marking them down because, there's going to be new iPads essentially at, some point. Or they're just getting rid of them, whatever. They were marked down to like $50. And these ones and these are like Apple Pencil compatible. So I'm like, well, here we go. I've been wanting to get one I can get a pencil with. Wow. So one Walmart around me showed that they had them in. And I called and, the guy that I talked to was like, yeah, I think we have them in or whatever. And I get out there and of course, no. And when I'm talking to the guy working there, it's a different guy. But I was talking to him and he goes, I don't know why. He's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, I don't know why he told you that. He's like, we haven't had iPads in since basically the coronavirus has hit. He's like, we got cleaned out of like everything electronics wise, which is why I called, because I've noticed most stores I've gone into, there's very little or no stock on iPads. So, and he goes, I don't know what it is. He's like, our website is showing that we have pools and iPads and Nintendo Switch sometimes. He's like, things that people really want. And he's like, and we don't have them. And he's like, I just keep having to tell people, I'm so sorry because blah, blah, and I was like, well, it's like, I don't know, I'm like, if you can figure out who was here yesterday, maybe, smack him in the head and say, hey. Well, because, like, the Walmart we went to is, like, a good 20-minute drive, 20, 25 minutes. I mean, it's not that it's that far, but that's wasted gas and time and, wasn't a big deal. My brother and I like to go to stores and look for stuff anyway, but it's still, like, it was more about the, the hope of, like, man, might be able to get one and mad cheap, but, oh well, it's not meant to be. So, what are you going to do, right? Throw myself on the ground and cry? No.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's what the guy even said, because they had the ones that they showed, because he looked up the number, because I had the number in my phone. And he looked it up, and he's like, well, let me just make sure we don't have any, like, newer ones. He's like, maybe I can talk to a manager and get him to knock the price. And I'm like, dude, you're not going to be able to get a price anywhere near that. And he goes, well, let me just see if I can come up with something reasonable. I was like, okay, whatever. He's really trying to do something nice for me. So it's like, well, let's just see what happens. But they didn't have any of even the new ones in, so it didn't end up mattering, So it was worth a try, though, I guess. Like I said, when we're talking $50, it's like there's no way they're going to come down to $50 on a brand new one. Like I can't. Yeah. I mean, if they did, I would be like slamming $50 on the counter and running as fast as possible before somebody changes their mind or something.
That's ridiculous.
Just running out yelling, no take backsies, So, whatever. What was funny is when after that, I jumped on, there's a website where you can kind of, it gives you a vague idea of like if stores are supposed to have the stuff in or whatever. And I jumped on their site and I typed in, various people like yours and other people's like zips to see if there's anywhere around them because if so, I'd be like, because hell, at that price, I'll gladly pay shipping and it's not like they're heavy,
Yeah.
So, of course, not, everybody I checked, no. And which isn't surprising because if they did have them, they're going to go fast at that price, The only downside was it was one of the, gold ones, but I'm like, I'll put it in a case. I don't even care. Like, I really don't care what color the iPad is. I'm just gonna put it in a protective case anyway. So anyway, it was disappointing, but like I said, in the end, it was all right because it got me out of the house for a little bit, which was nice and everything. So, yeah. And then, what else has happened since last time? We hit our 9-year anniversary with Salty Language, which was crazy, really thinking about how long we've been doing that and looking back at that a little bit. Not even just on the show, but just of my own, just looking back at all the things that have happened since we started and everything, so that was kind of wild. And, I got a woman mad at me yesterday because I was in a store and she had a little girl that said, "Mommy, I need to go to the bathroom." And she had another daughter with her. And the other one was probably 13, 14. And she was like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you. We're already in line." And I'm like, you've got another kid here. Like, you could have them pay. Because all she was buying was a pack of socks.
Oh, wow.
I was like, you could give her, because she was paying cash too. I'm like, you could give her the cash and let her pay while you run the other one to the bathroom, or have her go run the kid to the bathroom while you pay real quick, or just step out of line and go take your kid, And like when she said that, I just kind of was like, just kind of laughed out loud a little bit, And she's like, it's like, "What's your problem?" And I was kind of like, okay, well, honestly, here's what my problem is like, I was like, that's something I don't feel people should fool around with their kids. I know they get tired of taking their kids to the bathroom. I've been with people. I've taken kids to the bathroom for like, my nieces and nephews and stuff. It sucks to have to get up every 10 minutes or whatever, but it's also like, it's a little girl. Girls are more prone to UTIs and bladder infections. This is not something you should screw around with, And just, it got so dark in there because the smug covering for me was so thick. And I didn't care, It was one of those, like I said a few weeks ago, when I'm like, you know what? It isn't that I feel like, oh, I have to voice my opinion for someone else. Like, I'm not speaking for someone, essentially. I'm doing it just because it cheeses me off. And it's like, come on, just... All it was, the woman didn't want to walk to the back of the store. That's all it was. We were at the front, the bathroom's in the back. She didn't want to walk all the way to the back, And the little girl is standing there. I mean, she's doing the gotta pee dance.
Oh, jeez.
And I mean, she might be like stage 2 gotta pee dance. It's like, you might have to carry her back there. Because if she uncrosses those legs, it might be a problem, And I'm just like, ugh, It's just, that's the one thing, like, I get it when kids are, can I get this, or I'm hungry, or I'm thirsty, or, I see parents go, wait till we get home. Go into the bathroom when you're in a store that has a bathroom. I know coronavirus exists and everything, but it's still like, I don't know, whatever. Take your kids to the bathroom. Seriously. It reminds me of back when I was in school, and you would, like, hey, I have to go to the bathroom. And they'd be like, no, or you can wait until like the, class is over, kind of thing. And it's like, I can't, like, and how many times that happened either to me or to other kids in elementary, junior high, high school, and it's like in high school, I got to where I just got up and left. You
just didn't even care.
Yeah. Cause I've had essentially like IBS for years. And I had to go one day, and I was like, and I was in a class with this teacher that basically he wouldn't give a bathroom pass to anybody because he didn't want to interrupt the class. And the one day I just got up and he's like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "To the bathroom," and just walked out. Like, I didn't even ask. I just went because I knew he'd say no,
Yeah.
And of course, I came back. He sent me to the dean's office, and the dean, and I pulled the, I pulled the, we can call my parents and talk about this move. And then the dean was kind of like, maybe we don't want to do that. So, because the dean knew my mom, and my mom would have went up one side of him, down the other, and probably dug him up from his grave and then done it again. So it was more just, I knew the teacher would say no. And it's like, I got to go. I'm not going to sit here and have an accident. Well, I guess it wouldn't be an accident at that point, it'd be a deliberate.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not going to sit in class and do that. It's like, whatever, I'm sorry. Just get over yourself. All it was a power trip by the teacher.
It is.
Again, I get it. Kids will constantly, I have to go to the bathroom, just to keep getting out of class or whatever. But, I had other teachers, they just have something sitting on their desk. And it was like, if you had to go, you didn't have to ask. Just get up, take the pass, and go. And just, don't be gone for the whole class, basically. I mean, unless you have to, I guess. Anyway, all that aside, it was another one of those times where I noticed after the woman turned as I was walking out, and I saw her send the teenager with the girl to the back. And in my head, I'm kind of giving it a little fist pump, or basically walking out the door, and it's like the Breakfast Club at the end. I pump my fist in the air, because it's just, I don't know. It just bugs me, Like I said, I wasn't doing it to be like a hero or anything, or to, advocate. I was just like, quit being stupid, kind of. Oh, man. So, yeah. I actually watched, I've got to see my first real, what I thought was going to be a violent reaction to a store telling somebody they had to wear a mask. And in Michigan and Ohio, it's mandatory. You have to wear it statewide. And I was going into a Walmart, which I got to tell you, I went into 2 Walmarts over the last few days, and the amount of people I see that walk in and then pull their mask down, staggering. Every other store I go into, people at worst will have it below their nose, but generally still have it on. It's amazing to me how the demographic is different, But this Walmart literally had an actual security guard outside. It wasn't like Walmart guy outside. It was a security dude.
Yeah.
And a big dude, And this kid walked up, and the guy was like, whoa, and just stepped in front of him because they had it kind of sectioned off to where you had to basically go, make sure your name was on the list to get in. And he was like, whoa. And he told his kid, he's like, you got to put a mask on. You can't come in. And the kid's, well, this is stupid and all this. And then the kid's dad started getting blah, blah, blah. And the guy goes, look, he's like, you ain't coming in unless you're wearing a mask. And finally, the dad got all pissy and he's cussing him out as he's going back to his car. But I mean, he got in the guy's face and was like yelling at the security guard. And this, I got to say, to all the credit in the world of the security guard, he just stood there and was like, basically like, okay, but you got to wear a mask to get in. Yeah. I was like, wow, I was like, I don't know what he's making an hour, but most people would probably be like, you know what, it ain't worth this.
He basically did what I do when I boot someone's car.
Yeah.
And they want to argue about the money, and I just go, all right, well, I don't have to take it off. See ya.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm not going to pay. Da, 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 da. Well, I'm not going to take it off. Yeah. So work it out.
Yeah. Like, that's cool. You cannot pay, but
yeah,
boots staying on there.
Call me back when you,
yeah. When you have money, I can take it out of there. Yeah. I was just, I'm honestly surprised it's taken this long for me to see that because of the attitude of people in the area I live in, because there's quite a few people around here that are not in favor of, wearing masks and stuff. So I was really surprised it's taken this long, to see somebody really get in someone's face over it. I've seen, I've seen some arguments. I've seen some people I was involved in one where I kind of, had a strong disagreement with somebody over it, but the way that it was funny too, because this guy gets in the security guy's face, and I know he's yelling at him and he's trying to intimidate him, but I'm like, first of all, security guy's got this guy by 60, 70 pounds probably. And I mean, this guy isn't like just a fat dude. He was solid. Like, looks like he probably was an offensive lineman type build, big dude, but it wasn't like sloppy fat, And I'm sitting there going, dude, you can yell at him all you want, but he's had guys bigger than you try to move him, and clearly he ain't moving unless he wants to move. So I was like, all right. So I was glad to see the guy finally, just listen, because it's like, it's so not worth a fight. It's so not worth it. Like, he probably got sent to the store, like, hey, go to the store and get us some milk and blah, blah, blah. And he's, screaming at this guy. And meanwhile, his wife's probably blowing his phone up. Like, where the hell are you? I sent you to the store for like 3 things. Anyway, sorry, I was long-winded here. So how's your week been?
It's been good. I had a really fun experience last week. Last Friday, I got together with, and he's an acquaintance, but he's somebody that I go back years with, and we actually, he is an incredible artistic talent that walked away from being artistic a long time ago, and then he's always kind of kept a foot in that door, and he decided to put together like almost kind of like a rock opera kind of musical thing. But his timing was terrible. It was right around the time of all the other stuff that, all the other musicals that were coming out, and it was just, there's too much of it in pop culture.
Oh, okay.
And he had played me some music like 10 years ago, like seriously 10 years ago. We jumped in the car and I was like, wow, like he had an amazing grasp at grabbing the sound of the 80s. And like, really, I was like, whoa, like a little jealous, like, wow, he just, there's melodies and stuff that, God, I would never thought of that. And but nothing ever felt right. And he had showed me a script for this production. Like I said, it was just really bad timing. I was like, eesh. And so nothing has ever felt right. And here he comes around again. It was a recommendation from one of my bandmates who didn't have time to help him. And so William came over to my house and we sat down and I started playing him some of the stuff that I'd done recently, just to give him an example of what I'm doing. Because he was talking about he was basically saying what he needs for the music. And I said, okay, well, this is what I've been doing, just to give you an idea. And I could tell he was getting really excited. And then finally I played him this one song and he got really excited about it. It was a song that I found that it was just a folder, and it was this tune that I'd completely forgotten about that I discovered a couple weeks ago. And I really liked it. And the one thing that was interesting is he actually acknowledged his kind of lock-in with the 80s. And it's very difficult to be critical of one's own material, right? It's very difficult to look at it, step back from it, and see. And he actually saw it, and I was really happy he said that, because it's a strong point, but it could also be a weak point.
Sure.
If you're not what they're looking for, you're screwed.
Right.
So I was really happy he said that. And because I'm really more 90s, like I'm locked into that era.
Me too.
And it's a great combination for us. I can bring in my influences, but I've been doing a lot of work on learning more about like the 70s style of guitar playing and obviously playing bass. I'm learning new styles. And so I'm just hearing things differently. We go out to his car and he starts playing stuff, and it was like a whole new world. He'd done a lot of recording on this stuff, and pretty much everything that he had a hole that needed to be plugged.
Sorry, I'm laughing because my mental thing went into like when you were like, we went to his car and he played me some stuff and it was a whole new world. I'm picturing you two sitting there and the song from Aladdin is playing. And you're just like, this is great. Sorry.
That was kind of like the way it was 10 years ago. Where I was like, all right, cool.
All right. This is a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's worked on his material and really has a vision, and you could hear it, and every place where he needed to fill something in is exactly what I've been doing. And I'm like, wow. And I'm just hearing everything and blah, blah, blah. And then the weirdest thing is he gets here, let me play this one song. He plays this last song, and it's exactly like the last song I played for him. Like, it's so similar.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, granted, it's different guitar parts and everything, but the vibe was right there.
Okay. I thought you meant like it was I don't want to say stole from you, but you know what I mean? Like a parallel thought kind of a.
Yeah, we were just on the same page. And I just sat there and I looked, I was like, okay, wow, we need to work together. Like this has to happen now. It was very exciting. And I also, this is going to tie into our topic tonight a little bit, but it was one of those things where I love to find, for whatever reason, every single time before now was not right.
Yeah.
Now it's right. For whatever reason, I have no idea, but it is creepy right. And the thing that kind of stinks is I was really gung-ho about it, and then my week hit, and it was just a weird week. My luxury problem on Wednesday was I couldn't get funded for the refi because of a technicality that I could not fix. And it was just a paperwork thing.
Yeah.
And it was something that I could not get the paperwork. And it was just frustrating. There was literally nothing I could do about it.
Oh, wow.
We just had to wait.
Yeah.
And I know it what I liked is my loan agent said, I'm sorry if this, messes with your plans. And I was like, no, there's actually no plans whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which is what I needed to tell myself. It's like, there's no plan. There's nothing that can't work out today versus tomorrow or the day after.
Yeah.
Like nothing changes.
Right.
Except my expectations, desires, wants, needs, and all self-centered.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
and it put me in a really, really just bummer mood. And I think part of it is also just the frustration that I couldn't fix it. I couldn't, and there was nothing, I accepted that there was probably going to be nothing I could do about it, but to then put in an effort to see if there was something I could do about it, and it turned out that I couldn't.
Yeah.
And then to top it off, we had a gig booked for Thursday. Somebody bailed or couldn't do the gig. We stepped up. We'll do it. Practicing, set list, advertising, get it all out there. Yeah. And that person then tells the venue, oh, I can do it now. And they shined us on.
Wow. All right.
And between those two, that was when about the headache started to kick in.
Yeah. I imagine so, because that's I don't know. That feels like Bush League stuff, Like if somebody bails on you, you don't reward them,
Yeah, you don't give them a second chance.
No. You say, sorry, we already filled the spot. Maybe next time,
That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that was about, but it happened. And
maybe they got some scandalous pictures of them or something,
Yeah, who knows? In the end, it ended up working out great because I did get funded for the refi yesterday, and last night, Sharon and I sat down with the old bank accounts, paid off all our debts.
Awesome.
Which was a great feeling.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah. And then one of the things was so now what? And when I mean now what as far as like we need to learn how to change our behaviors.
Yeah, because otherwise 10 years from now you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also part of it was how are we going to distribute this?
Yeah.
And are we going to make an effort to pay this off earlier or whatever? And I just had this moment where I said, how about we just forget about it? And this is how much the house is worth now. And there is no keeping score. And we just split whatever addition it is to the mortgage right now. We just split it evenly.
Mm-hmm.
And we forget what it was for. There is no longer any, I paid this much for the house and this much of it is our credit cards on top of that.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know where that came from, but it was the best thing that came out of my mouth because it was like, oh, that just relieves any sort of potential for resentment or doubt or fear or anything that regret.
Yeah.
All those things that go along with putting yourself into a financial situation or making comparisons or anything like that. It all just went out the window. It's like, what if we just do this and just forget that what just happened?
Yeah. Well, and the beautiful part too is since you're reducing all this other debt is if something were to change financially on your end or her end, you can adjust. You can, at that point you could reapproach it and go, okay, well, let's this or this, versus the way you've been, because I've been that way too, where you're just like, up to your eyeballs, and it's like, no, every penny has to go to this, or that, you know, we have to do it this way to make sure whatever. And that was part of the whole point of this, was to free you of a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's awesome that even we're able to take it another step and just really free some of that, like you said, any chance of shaming, guilt, those kind of things, and just you know, get rid of it and just play on an even field, and it'll just feel better.
Start over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so then the plan will be that we will then go the rest of the year without using any credit cards, debit cards only, and we'll track all of our spending.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I already have a program that I do it on, but again, you know, I don't know how Sharon's going to do that, you know, whether it's just through her account and by hand or whatever.
Yeah.
But we'll track all the spending, and then at, you know, the beginning of the year, we'll review it all.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is how much I spent on this. This is how much I spent on this. This month was tight. This month was, you know, or, oh, wow, my savings has grown, or whatever, however it ends up. Or I've decided that I paid, you know, for her, we're not paying off the car. And we were just kind of talking about, well, you know, should we pay extra towards the mortgage? And I said, you know what? No, pay off your car quicker.
Yeah.
If you're going to throw an extra $50 somewhere, throw an extra $50 at the car.
Yeah.
Get that thing paid off out of the way. And then you'll have the feeling of, I did this, and I did this earlier than I was supposed to.
Well, and not to mention, like, you know, when you look at car debt versus house debt, you know, you're going to be able to completely get the car off of you much faster than that was
the point.
If you put that same money into the house, you're still going to go, we're still paying on it for 20 years, you know, or 30 years, whatever the number is, you know. So it's like, you know, I think that's the right move. Plus, you know, that does give you extra collateral, or in the event that something happens to the car, you're not, oh man, we still owe X dollars. It's nope, It's paid for. We can just walk in and say, here's the beater. We need another vehicle or whatever. So there is something to be said for that too, you know.
Yeah, and that and also maybe getting some of that savings that everyone says you're supposed to have.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah. this supposed 3 months of your wages in a savings account.
Wait. Wages? Listen, I can't even find what list to get on for, you know, like, I'm not a dead person. I'm not an illegal person in the country, so I apparently don't make the list for this current round of stimulus checks. So.
Oh, my mom got hers, so I bet you'll get yours pretty soon.
Oh man,
like she literally just got hers last week.
Oh wow. Luckily enough, she's in a similar position to like me, to where it's like, it's not a matter of I'm going to get thrown out or I'm going to starve or something. You know, thank goodness I'm blessed that I'm not in that. It's just frustrating. You know, you look at the news, and like I said, I just read something the other day that they realized that a bunch of checks were mailed out to people who weren't supposed to get them. And then before they had, you know, a bunch of dead people that checks were mailed out to. And I'm like, really though? Like, really? Like, and I know I'm not alone. I know there's tons of people who are supposed to get these. And it's like, also by us people like me not getting them and stuff, it's like there's all that chance of it not affecting the economy the way it was intended.
Yeah.
Because it will, but it's going to be in choppier waves instead of kind of all at once. I know that was the goal, was to really hit it kind of all at one time to really give a jump start. But anyway, this isn't an economics podcast, so.
So that was a nice end to the week. And
cool.
I did, at work, I was doing some new things. We've been replacing some motors and pumps that, you know, pump the fluids around the property. Mm-hmm. And my coworker Omar does most of the stuff. And this year, you know, one of the things, it's always been every year, it's like, I need to learn about this. So the last few times we've done a few of them, I've done them with him. And then this last week I said, hey, do you mind if I do these by myself? And so that was really cool.
Yeah.
It was hard, you know, because nothing's ever, there's always a problem or something, but it felt good, felt accomplished. And that was a nice thing. And one of my coworkers gave 2 weeks notice, which was a little odd because I feel like we have a pretty good thing going.
Oh, wow. All right.
it was kind of strange. It's weird when, it's like it's not like we're such a small operation. You can't help but feel like friends.
Yeah.
So it feels weird.
Mm-hmm.
But, on the other hand, it's also, it is just a job,
Right.
to one degree or another. And we'll see what happens. But with anything, change is always weird.
Indeed.
It is. It's so strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's about it. Yeah.
Well, good. Both of us really, the worst thing I had to complain about really was my power going out for a few hours. Sounds like a pretty good week. You know what I mean? And your worst situation was you couldn't get some paperwork as fast as you wanted to.
and so
we're doing all right.
A day.
Yeah. I think we're doing okay this week.
Yeah. Seriously. Now, one thing I wanted to bring up was off of last week's topic. Jen brought in this radical compassion topic. For those of you who haven't listened to last week's episode, I'm going to maybe steer you in a better direction before you get there. If you did listen to last week's episode, one of the things there were a couple different websites that we got into, and one of them had to do with radical compassion as kind of a movement, and the other one was a particular person who wrote a book. And after we got done with the show last week, Brian and I were doing a little more exploration into Tara Brach, who wrote the book Radical Compassion, and we found that her website is unbelievably amazing and has nothing to do with the movement of radical compassion, which is based in, what was the other thing? Nonviolent communication. That was it. And I wanted to, we both kind of, if you go into Tara Brach's web page, she has a resources page that is absolutely amazing. So she's a therapist who basically brings in Buddhist philosophy with her professional therapy. And her resources on her page are very useful, extremely useful. She does a lot of free online seminars right now. She has
a lot of meditations and stuff too.
Yes.
Like ways of turning this into meditations, and as well as actual audio of meditations on her YouTube and stuff. Yeah, there, like you said, there were some great resources that are free on there.
Yeah, and she ties into this meditation center where I grew up that has an amazing reputation, and she obviously is a lot of the things that she goes into is part of her vocation, I guess, her, what she does as a therapist. And it's one thing to just recommend meditation. It's another thing to be so in it that you can help people with that part, which I don't often see. Usually it's well, we recommend, it's like a therapist saying, well, you should go to a 12-step meeting, and the therapist has never been one versus a therapist who has been to them and can kind of give you a little bit of a step in the right direction. And her page, as far as like Brian was saying about, like right on the front page, it says new to meditation. It's like resources, boom, get in there.
Right. Now there is a section where she does have things where you can pay to take classes and all this other stuff. But as I was just clicking around in there, and Henno was too, like I said, there's so much of it that is just free. And, and like that, I love the fact that the kind of one of the first things was kind of like, are you new to meditation? Have a look at this or listen to this first and whatever. So that, it isn't, assuming that you're, like a black belt in, meditation or anything, you can literally be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's like, come on in, so that's nice.
think that was a computer on my end. Yes, it was.
Okay, I was like, I don't know.
I was like, I don't know where that noise came from. That was me.
All right.
So for our topic tonight, and this is where I'm going to tie into what I was talking about with William and music, is I have what would be called a positive version of a conspiracy theory.
Oh, okay.
Meaning that it's in a way a delusion.
Yeah.
But it's a positive belief.
Okay.
So, right, there's no truth to the idea that I prefer to believe, because I enjoy it, that there's a reason that William and I got together at this time.
Yeah.
That a lot of that comes from my personal journey in sobriety, and how, but with 2020 hindsight, I could view a path, and it helped give me a sense of purpose in being sober, and that there was a reason for this. And this is where I like to mention that, it got me into 12-step groups. 12-step groups, some people say, is brainwashing. Well, my brain needed a good washing.
Yeah.
This is where I brainwashed myself. I have a positive illusion. And our topic today is about conspiracy theories and the psychology behind them. And one of the things he talks about is that buying into a false belief, right? I'm buying into a false belief because it works for me. But it's a positive illusion, and he calls it unwarranted optimism. And it's extremely common and even healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now conspiracy theories are also extremely common.
True.
Now it's a question of, are they healthy or not?
Yeah.
And where do they come from?
Right.
Why do people have them? And this is a really fun article on Psychology Today. And his name's Joe Pierre. He's an MD. And he talks about what kind of personality types believe in conspiracy theories. And one of the fun things right off the bat is, what makes a conspiracy theory different than a religious belief? Because both of them are a desire to believe in something.
Yeah.
But there's one thing a conspiracy theory starts with, is disbelief in a conventional idea in favor of a secret one, maybe a little bit malevolent, and something that's being hidden from everybody, versus like a religious belief, which is, it's not necessarily conventional, but it is shared by more than one person. It's out in the open. Right. And religious belief focuses more on trust, where conspiracy theories focus more on distrust. And it's kind of an interesting way to look at it when you start comparing them with other things, like my own idea. Like, what's the difference between me enjoying the little quirks of a higher power versus, a conspiracy theory? They're both illusions. Right?
Yep.
So he's got a great paragraph in here that I really dug, and he was trying to find a definition of what a belief is in psychology. Because that's where, right? This is where it starts. We're talking beliefs. So he says, I like to define a belief as a cognitive representation of the nature of reality that includes our inner experiences, the world around us, and the world beyond. So a cognitive representation of the nature of reality that includes our inner experiences, the world around us, and the world beyond. And then he says, just don't ask me to define cognitive representation. Which made me laugh.
Yes.
But so it's an if you're going to talk about the act of believing, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
Right? So one important dimension of believing, he says, is conviction, which is the degree on which we hold on to beliefs in the face of different opinions and evidence to the contrary. And the extent of which we believe something varies wildly depending on a specific belief or a specific individual. And it's the differences in conviction that are often more psychologically relevant than the differences in the content of beliefs.
Yeah. That
Right?
makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it does.
Doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you look at why do I believe it this way and they believe it, that way.
Mm-hmm.
So now we need to look at those differences in convictions and their sources in a way. So then he describes about as a psychiatrist, he tries to look at things in a reverse way. And he says, as a psychiatrist, I think that understanding pathological forms of beliefs, such as delusions, can help us understand certain types of normal beliefs, like conspiracy theories that we might describe as delusion-like. And I instantly read it as delusion light, which I think is funnier. Conspiracy theory is delusion light.
Yeah.
But he said that there's commonalities, but there's also differences. And delusions are loosely defined as strong beliefs and things that aren't true. And the key difference between a delusion and a conspiracy theory is that delusions, by definition, are false and not shared by others. They're very much within ourselves.
Yeah.
And that the believer is part of the story. Now, conspiracy theories rarely, right, what we commonly think of as conspiracy theories don't have anything to do with us. If we typically start thinking that people are after us or someone's watching us, that suddenly becomes delusion.
Yeah.
Right? Instantly. It's like, okay, you're delusional. Whereas if you just believe in something happened that, the government, blah, 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 that it's so far removed that it's no longer be considered a delusion.
Yeah.
So, he points out that conspiracy theorists often aren't so much theorists as they are conspiracy theists, meaning taking on more of a religious aspect. That the people who believe in conspiracy theories aren't usually so much theorizing and coming up with explanations on their own as they are hearing them from other people or finding them online.
Yeah.
So it's like a religious movement.
Right, and this is where social media can strongly come into that now, It's not just hidden message boards like it was 20 years ago, It's right there in your face on, like, Facebook or whatever. There's quite a few of them now that are super easy to, see in your feed just because someone will randomly share something because it's, whatever it is. They think they stumbled onto something or it is something that they, that they believe in. So, they're willing to share it. I've seen a lot of different things over the last few years, that, like I said in the past, it would have been, you'd always know a guy who knows a guy kind of a thing who believes in it. Now it's like, it's probably within your like closer friend circle than it used to be, or it's at least shared by. And
the tie to religion makes a lot of sense in that if you're going through a hard time in your life and somebody quotes you some scripture or something and it suddenly makes sense to you, it's a form of confirmation bias.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing that you researched on your own. It was presented to you.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes with what I experienced with the 12-step group. I walked in there as an alcoholic and they started talking about alcoholism.
Yeah.
They spoke to me.
Yeah.
It was, and so there's that it's also a form of confirmation bias.
Yeah.
This thing I had inside of me was confirmed.
Right. Same with me and going to therapy.
Yeah.
At the same situation, and like similar to, what you went through. And
Yeah.
is, you go in there and you're like, hey, this, and they go, yep, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, and like you said, it's a confirmation bias of sorts.
Yeah. So some of the what he calls cognitive quirks that people who believe in conspiracy theories tend to have are a need for certainty, a need for closure, and what psychologists call teleologic bias, which is the desire to believe that everything happens for some greater purpose. Now, again, this ties into this idea of a positive illusion.
Yeah.
We have them in religion. I just described them myself. I have my own little quirk in that regard to say that something happens for a greater purpose. It keeps me on the path, right? And these are the quirks that help explain why the assassination of JFK or the death of Princess Diana attracts so many conspiracy theories.
Yep.
Yet, the attempted murder of Ronald Reagan produces none.
That's true. I haven't seen very many conspiracy theories based on that.
But it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
There's actually no difference, right?
Mm.
So the fact that this is just it doesn't make sense that this thing that changed so many lives could have come down to just one person. So there has to be all of this behind it, right? And that happens with JFK, that happened with Princess Diana, and it would have happened with Reagan.
Yes.
But
probably.
It's interesting because it didn't actually come to fruition, because it would have been the world would have changed.
Yeah, it would have. Yeah.
It absolutely would have changed.
Mm-hmm.
It would have, the effect would have been huge. No different than with JFK. And yet now there's no conspiracy because, well, it wasn't accomplished, which I find that so fascinating.
It is very weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and here's where I think there's a little bit of a difference. And I know this is my own bias here, but that conspiracy theories are found to be more likely in people who don't think analytically or have a need for uniqueness, which makes them more attracted to a hidden secret narrative that no one else knows about.
Mm.
Now, we all tend to have these. He says this here. We all tend to have these traits to certain degrees already. So it's less about personality type as it is about something more subtle or on a continuum of normalcy.
You know what's
right?
funny about that is the concept of the, being attracted to the hidden secret narrative that no one knows about, it is very interesting because I'm very much the type that when you tell me something like that and I'll go, first thing I'll ask is, where's the proof? And I will also be like, okay, look, there's like 500 people that are kind of believing that versus millions and millions and millions who don't, or it's been, dismissed by a larger group of, considered intellectuals or experts. And it's like, so to me, it's like if you find something that no one else has found before, it's like, unless you're a scientist, I'm generally more along the lines of like, I'm more likely to not believe it until there's a groundswell behind it that it is the truth. Until I find some sort, the skeptical part of me cannot look at it because it's like, look, if this was the truth, it would spread. It would spread like wildfire, kind of a thing.
That's where the conspiracy theories fall apart, is in the numbers,
right? But that's exactly what keeps me from falling. The first thing that'll keep me from falling into these is, like I said, I'm a skeptic. I hide, I've never hidden that. I've been very open about it. And that's the thing is, it's like, I'm not a skeptic just to be a jerk. I'm a skeptic because I'm like, it's because I don't want to fall into something and then, basically buy into something that turns out to be a Ponzi scheme or something down the road. You don't want to be a victim down the road, really, is what it is. It's a defense mechanism.
Like, one of the great examples is the fake moon landing, which literally comes down to one guy. One guy says this one thing, and off it goes, right?
Yeah.
But the numbers go against it because just the sheer amount of people involved in the lunar program.
Yeah. I listened to Jim Jeffries talk about it one time, and his question on it was basically like, okay, let's say they faked it. He's kind of like he's like, why do people want to believe in this so much? You know, like, what's the end game? What's your win in this? And he knows what it is. The win is we were right. We proved we were duped, because people constantly, for years and years and years, have wanted to prove that the government is doing things and lying to us, which, don't get me wrong, there's tons of proof that they do, you know?
Well, that's it. Exactly. If you just look at what happened under the Nixon administration, right?
Yeah.
You look at what has been done in world wars, there's been so much evidence that the wool was pulled over for reasons.
Yes.
You know, like D-Day. Nobody was supposed to know that was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
It's a secret.
Right.
So there's plenty of evidence that the government does withhold secrets.
Yeah.
And especially at the late 60s and the early 70s with all the stuff with Nixon, it's like there were actually people doing dirty tricks. It was true.
Yeah.
So why not extrapolate that? Why not?
Yeah. But it's weird how people will buy into a lot of things that government tells them, but then single out what generally feels like the really ridiculous stuff. Or again, like, okay, the moon landing one, it's like, by that, whether you believe it did or didn't happen, right? Like, the win of it was that it essentially became a catalyst for invention. It became a catalyst for funding NASA, which has led to a ton of different things, all this stuff, right? And it's like, so why do people want to shoot holes in that one so badly?
Yeah, well, yeah. Why does a person want to be contrarian?
Right. Those are the ones, especially. I'm like, I don't get this. Like, who cares? Even if you're right in the end, so what? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why the need to be. And I know what it is. As a lot of the people probably that buy into a lot of these conspiracy theories, they need one to hit. Because if one hits, then they could go, see. Now you can't dismiss all these other ones that I come up with or bring to you. And I get it. We all do that with various things. Kind of like telling jokes, right? You tell one joke, it doesn't land. How many people stop right there? You know, we generally will try again because we're trying really hard to get someone to like us or whatever it is. So I get it. You're trying to get that confirmation.
Well, that's it. It's the same thing as, when you run into somebody that you haven't seen in a long time and you say small world, but you completely disregard the tens of thousands of people you ran into.
Yeah.
It's just, it's statistically, eventually you're going to run into somebody you haven't seen in a while. Like, it's.
Yeah. The small world one for me is always more like when we used to do flea markets. One of the first times we went to Louisville, Kentucky, the first customer that walked up to us and started talking to us saw that we were from Toledo, Ohio, and they were like, oh my God, that's where I'm from. And it was like, oh, it's a small world kind of a thing. And it's like, those feel a little more like that. But you're right. Like, if it's in town and you run into somebody, oh, what's the odds we'd both be at the market at the same time? It's like, well, this is the busy time of the market. You live in a close proximity. Just
the fact that just eventually connections are going to be made.
Right. Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah. It's why people are in most car accidents near their home.
Exactly. Because you're more often near your home.
Yeah. It's just,
There you go.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I've train wrecked you completely here. Sorry.
No, it's all part of this because it ties in because I'm making a look at myself and going, okay, for me, one of the most difficult things of getting sober was accepting a program that believes in a higher power when I am at that point was an agnostic.
Yeah.
And the thing about it that I liked about the 12-step programs is that they bring in a side of analysis. And that helped me.
Yeah.
it wasn't just a matter of, oh, you have to take this on faith. In some ways, at first you did, but they actually try to give you good, convincing reasons, because to me, the conspiracy theorist never joins. The conspiracy theorist
wants to be
holds
fringe.
out.
Yeah.
Because a conspiracy theorist is always looking for the loophole.
Right.
And this is what's fascinating to me now is when I personally have connections with people that are in sobriety and I see them believing in conspiracy theorists and I go, this goes completely counter to everything that we learned. That if I actually believed this, I would still be out there drinking because I would be looking for that loophole. Maybe I'm not an alcoholic.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. Because
Right?
see, what I was thinking was I was like, well, a lot of alcoholics tend to feel isolated. So staying kind of on the outside, you know, it might you could kind of lean into some of this stuff a little easier because you're isolated. But because I know that it's why some people with depression will fall into this stuff because they're, they get paranoid because it comes along with the territory or whatever. So then they can it's a little easier to buy into certain things because the world is out to get you. Or if you're depressed, nothing good's going to happen. Your brain convinces you that everyone's out to get you, everyone's lying to you, all this. There's a difference between going to like full-blown paranoia and just, base level, everyone hates you kind of a thing. But I could see where conspiracy theory in both cases could kind of, like, people could kind of maybe find, I don't know, a lot of times, you can find a little comfort in those things. But you're right, it is counterintuitive to what you're taught in 12-step.
Because you sit in that room and you listen to everybody and you say, but that's not me.
Right.
I'm different.
Yeah.
This doesn't apply to me. I'm different. And where this interesting paradox is for me is that I walked in and I said, whoa, I'm just like all of you. Like, holy cow, they went around the room and they were telling my story and I could relate to everybody. And I decided I was in the right place, that these were people that could help me. They've experienced what
Yeah.
And then in the end, in order for me to be around people that can drink, I had to come to the conclusion that I'm just different. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's this weird paradox because I looked at it as like, I have an allergy.
Yeah.
Alcohol affects me differently.
Right.
Once I start, I can't stop. And being different helped me get past the peer pressure. Oh, come on, you can just have a drink. No, I can't because I'm different than you.
Like me, if I go to a swimming pool and, come on, jump in, the water's mirror. I'm like, yeah, I'm allergic to chlorine, so I can't. And most of the time, people will let it go because they'd be like, oh, that sounds terrible. Sucks to be you. And they'll go back to what they're doing, right? You know? But they pretty much do, just like anything in life. Like if you tell somebody you have a dairy allergy and they're trying to get you to try ice cream or whatever, you just be like, or peanut allergy is a good example, like most people aren't like, come on.
Yeah, they won't. Exactly.
No, just
like,
have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last part he talks about, and you already touched on a little bit about how the internet has created, and what he calls here is filter bubbles.
Oh man. Yeah.
Which are basically, the internet fosters echo chambers and confirmation bias that strengthens conviction in our pre-existing beliefs.
YouTube rabbit holes.
Yes. And so why don't you share about that?
We talked about that a little bit. I know I brought it up when I found that article on it. I know I posted it in a few episodes back. But was it Mozilla or whatever it was, I believe, did a study where they created profiles for YouTube. And they did different ones, like they did one as a Republican, one as a Democrat, and they did other ones. And basically, the experiment was to show people how when you first enter, like, YouTube, you've kind of got everything in front of you. But the more you use it, it deliberately filters to what you're looking for, essentially. or can take you deeper down the rabbit hole. Like if you're looking for conspiracy theories, the first ones it shows you, it's going to show you everything. But then as you're really digging down into it, you can get into like Pizzagate and some of those that are, really down the hole of ways. And basically just showing you how, first of all it does is feed confirmation bias, but also essentially how it can become kind of dangerous because it can lead you into thinking that is, not fact-based, that's not, good. It can lead you into some bad areas that you might not want to be into. And if you're kind of open to an idea already, it can kind of, maybe feed into a side of you that you would have never looked for on your own. But because they constantly are the, feeding you the, here's more like what you liked kind of a thing. And it's not just YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, pretty much everything now is filtering people into these bubbles or funnels or whatever you want to call them. And that's the idea behind it. Is the intention was really good, but unfortunately, like most things in technology, they start out with great intentions and they work too well. And then someone goes, as they're petting a cat on their lap, and next thing you know, yeah. So be very careful of those. If I can find the link to that article, I'll throw it in the notes again, because it was a really good read.
Yeah, it really was.
Something I really feel like everybody should read, just so you're aware of what's going on.
Again, analysis.
Yeah.
Do the,
Yep.
Analyze.
Right, and it's not saying Republicans are worse than Democrats or people who believe in the moon landing are worse than people who believe in, I don't know, cheering for baseball, or whatever. Just it really was basically saying no matter what you walk into YouTube essentially looking for, it just shows you how it just funnels it completely on you. Which, like I said, on one hand, you're like, awesome. Like I said, if I'm looking for recipes, cool, it can show me all these crazy recipes or how to fix things. That's great. But sometimes you can get into some territory where it can, put some bad or dangerous ideas in people's heads or feed into an idea that's already in their head.
Yep.
And strengthen their resolve in it. Or as it said in, earlier in this article about the conviction, Yeah, really strengthening your conviction in something that maybe is, not so good. So, anywho.
So that's the end of part 1. There's a part 2 that we will maybe get to someday. But that's where we start for tonight.
Something I noticed too is at the top of that article, it says that this is actually pulled from a podcast he was on. And there's a link at the top of the article for the podcast that he was on if you just want to listen to him talk about this. I guess I should point out Joe Pierre, MD.
Oh, yeah, the Lisa show.
Yeah, and there's also a link at the bottom, like you said, for part 2 of his interview. So I'll have those in the show notes too, so you can, just click on those and read around if you want to, so you can look at this for yourself. Because this is something that, this is the part of conspiracy theories that I'm the most interested in. Most conspiracy theories, as soon as somebody opens their mouth, I'm just like, oh, geez, this, and, but I'm very much curious what makes people tick. So I'm generally very curious, like what makes on some of these, and not all of them are like bad ones or anything. There's some that are just goofy or whatever. And you're just like a good example would be on TV shows, right? People will have conspiracy theories about something that's happened that led to this on a reality TV show or something like that. And there's some of them I've read over the years that are funny, or, even just a TV show trying to come up with well, they did this so that this comes down the road. It can be just kind of fun to do those things. There's really no harm in most of those, but some of them I'm just like, just shaking my head when I see them or read about them, So, all right. Well, I guess that's a talk, eh?
That's it.
All right. So, to the YouTube thing.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I guess this is the part where Jen says, if you want to continue the conversation, you know what to do. You can reach out to us by hitting our website, which is, I forgot, so I got to scroll down. The crazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can email us if you'd like to at the crazylifepodcast@outlook.com. The show Twitter can be found at the Crazy Life Pod. Jen's Twitter can be found at Jen's Crazy Life, and that's Jen with a G. And she can also be found on her other podcast, Shake the Sheets, with her co-host Nate, where they talk about pop culture. And that can be found at shakethesheets.com, or I believe pretty much anywhere like wherever you get this show, you could probably find it there too. And how about you, Mr. Henno, sir?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno. You can find me on Facebook Messenger, Henno Heiter, where you can see me throw up photos of my cool wildflowers that I have going around and rant about politics.
Yeah, you've had some really nice pictures of flowers recently. They've really been coming in nice this year.
There's been some cool stuff coming up. I'm really stoked about it. So, And this coming week, Moving the Needle podcast is going to release our episode that Brian joined us on, talking about basketball and dodgeball.
Yep. Yeah.
The movies.
Which was good fun to record, and definitely go check that out. We'll probably talk about it again next week.
Yep.
I can throw the link in the show notes and stuff. Yeah. If you want to reach out to me, I can be found on Twitter at Stunami. My other podcast is at salty_language on Twitter or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work, so please be careful where you're listening. And I just flubbed all up. You can find us on the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows on there. And, that's all the links, I think. So, as usual, we ask you please reach out to somebody and check in on them. Just make sure they're doing okay. I've had some really, really rough conversations with some people over the last couple weeks. Just people dealing with some rough stuff between COVID and other things in their life and whatever. So, just reach out to your friends, especially the ones you haven't talked to in a while. Make sure they're doing okay. And then, of course, as usual, I also, implore everyone to please spread kindness and be kind whenever you can, because we can always use more of that. So, All right. Want to take us out of here, Henno?
Yeah. Don't worry if the glass is half empty or half full. Just guzzle that thing down. The glass is refillable.